Hari, Hari, Hari Om Tatsat. Jaya Guru. Yam Shaiva Samupasate Shivaidi Brahmedi Vedantino Bauddha Buddha Iti Pramana Padava Karte Dinayaiga Arhan Nityatha Jaina Shasanarata Karmedi Mimamsaka Soyamvo Vidadhadu Vanchita Phalam Trahilokyanaatho Hari Soyamvo Vidadhadu Vanchita Phalam Trahilokyanaatho Hari. The last line of this benedictory verse, it says that the genuine and noble desires of all of you be rightly fulfilled. Certainly you will appreciate and also need this kind of a benediction. Soyamvo vidadhadu vanchita phalam Trailokyanatho Harihi Madhya Hridaya Kashe Sadanandamayo Guru Udetu Sadatam Samyak Ajnana Timirarunaha Harihi Hari Om Tats. Jaya Guru. We shall have, as usual, 3 times the Omkara recitation in chorus. I will try to reduce the length of the recitation so that all of you can participate in it well and I can also do it better. Hari, Hari. Yesterday I was discussing mainly that Bhagavad Gita is actually a sadhana book, a book of sadhana. If you say it is a book of sadhana, how does it become sadhana? That is what I was trying to explain yesterday. I don't know whether all of you got me properly. I would again summarize the position. Arjuna went into a state of total depression, so to say. He was deluded. He was grief-stricken. He had a lot of sympathy. All these are problems of the mind. Agitations produced by the mind. The mind always goes on reacting to external situations. So when he saw Bhishma and Drona, along with so many of kith and kin on both sides, he was totally unnerved. That was the crisis in his mind. It was a mental problem. Now, he said a lot of things to Krishna, explaining how he had come to the conclusion that he would not fight. After listening to all that, Krishna admonished him. If you want to know precisely in how many words, I can tell you in 64 letters he responded to him. Those 64 letters, when Arjuna heard them fully and absorbed them, all his sympathy and grief in a way disappeared. What remained in him was only some moral, ethical and propriety questions. He said, I will not raise any point of sympathy at all. But I am left with a riddle here. The riddle is, how can I fight the most harmless and benedictory Bhishma and Drona? It is not proper. So the question was one of propriety. Tell me who will raise or what will raise a question of propriety? Certainly not the mind, but the intelligence. So initially it gripped the mind. Later on he finds that it has gripped his intelligence also. Otherwise he was quite all right. He had no problem at all. He was a very hefty man. He had come with full booming health. Everything was all right. But suddenly mind and intelligence turned against him. Now what did Krishna do? Krishna only spoke to him. How many times shall I say this sentence? Krishna only spoke to him and Arjuna just listened to him. Nothing else took place in the battlefield. Arjuna continued to sit. Krishna continued to stand. Turning uncomfortably backward, looking at the seated Arjuna, Krishna went on speaking for about 2.5 hours. Tell me, what is the type of interaction that they had in the battlefield? I have no doubt about it. It was a mental-intellectual interaction between them. Arjuna, first of all, was affected mentally. Then intelligence also contributed its share to the problem. She presented it and Krishna is addressing the problem. He is using words, that's all, to express ideas and knowledge. And Arjuna was using his ear to hear those words and pass them on to the mind and intelligence. Now you tell me, in the book of Gita as a sadhana, what is the sadhana that you have to do? Similarly, you hear or you read. If you have somebody to tell you, listen to him fondly, listen to him faithfully. If nobody is there, we have our scriptures, open them and start reading. When you read, it is not the eyes that are going to react to what you have read. It is your mind. And from the mind, it percolates into the intelligence and there is a mental-intellectual involvement. Because every word uttered by the mouth is a unit of knowledge, a measure of knowledge. So all the words convey only knowledge, only knowledge, only knowledge. So it is a knowledge interaction that takes place when you read or hear somebody. Am I clear? In the battlefield of Kurukshetra, the sitting Arjuna, what could he have done except hearing Krishna and reflecting upon whatever he heard and understanding it? If there was any doubt, he should have raised, he could have raised, and he did raise and he got answers. So when I say mento-intellectual, it means a lot. Now why I am saying this? Because I have been talking to all of you, many of you, for so many years. I am not satisfied at all that you are applying your mind and intelligence to whatever you hear. Maybe you hear me when I talk. But after I have stopped, and you also have stopped, have you ever reflected upon the message that you have heard? Do you remember them? What is the method of remembering? That is why we take a text. A text is available in the form of print. So you can buy the text, read it, reflect upon it. Again, if you have doubt, you can ask me or ask your Guru. So this is very important. So the entire sadhana is a mento-intellectual sadhana. And you cannot say, I am excluded from it. Many of the householders will say, we are not sannyasins, so can we understand and practice Gita? That is why I repeatedly say, what? Arjuna was not a sannyasin. Krishna was not a sannyasin. The occasion was not sannyasa. The occasion was not austerity or asceticism. It was right in the midst of a battlefield where discharge of arrows was to take place at any point of time. In such a situation, where is the question of forest life and forest austerity? The austerity that is required is mento-intellectual. Hear it and make the mind enriched by the words of wisdom. More and more the mind gets enriched. It starts imbibing qualities, developing qualities, and all these qualities are in the way of an enrichment to the mind and intelligence. A qualitative enrichment. For the mind it is emotional, behavioral, characteral, and for the intelligence it is in terms of knowledge. So the entire book of Bhagavad Gita is to be absorbed by your mind and intelligence. For that you should read. That is why I finally said you should study Bhagavad Gita. We have got a very good book, Insights into Bhagavad Gita, very recently written. Every verse has got 150 word note to make the reader understand the message of that particular verse. Generally, while people read Bhagavad Gita, they won't be able to make a full meaning and relevance of whatever they read. So I thought that book was written with a view to deliver to the country heads of different countries in the world. We have a plan. I don't know when it will be executed. Merely by reading and getting a translation of the words, you may not be able to get anywhere. So to help you relate each message, understand the message and apply it in your life, these words, this 150 word note has been made. I would like you to have a copy. Not only that, gift the copies, 1, 2 or 3, as many as you can, to your friends. This will be a great contribution. As a listener, as a devotee, as a seeker, I think you ought to do it. I will also tell you before conclusion 1 or 2 more books which will help you for this mento-intellectual sadhana. In the case of Arjuna, we have only 2.5 hours available. Because the war cries had been raised and everybody was impatient to discharge the arrows. The whole of it was stopped because of the veneration they had for Arjuna, and they found Arjuna, he was not fighting at all. There is some problem. So all of them kept quiet. And the whole dialogue took place in 2.5 hours. So it was a 2.5 hour mento-intellectual application that solved the problem of Arjuna. He got up, he took back the bow and arrow, and he said, I shall fight, if necessary, a score of Mahabharata wars. What more do you want? What more do you want? His mind was stabilized, his intelligence got sufficient clarity, his heart became very stable, and he was an embodiment of stability. For 18 days he fought. 4.5 million warriors were present there, minus 10, all were killed by people on the other side. The Pandavas also lost their army. Only 10 people survived. All the others were lost. This notorious war, treacherous war, he was able to fight for 18 days without any confusion, delusion or instability. Now, is it always a 2.5 hour job? No. We have other instances. Everybody knows about King Parikshit, the great Parikshit. He had performed even Ashwamedha Yagas. So great, so venerable. Somehow he happened to get angry, and Shamika Maharshi, whose hermitage he went to, feeling thirsty, thinking that he would give him some water, the Maharshi was seated, completely immersed in himself. He did not know the arrival of the king at all. So the emotion that drove him there, that is thirst, that physical condition overpowered his mind and he got angry. After all, he was a king. Normally, any king who goes anywhere will be respected because it is under his rule that even ascetics are able to perform their austerity in peace and in plentifulness. When he was going back, he got angry and felt, why this Swami is seated, Shamika Maharshi is seated so unconsciously? Is it an ostentation or is he really absorbed? He wanted to test. So nature had cleverly kept a dead cobra right outside the hermitage. So he took it in his bow by the tip, brought it and put it on his neck as if it were a garland and went away. What a great sinful act. Nobody would expect a person of Parikshit's order, maturity, life, knowledge to stoop down to this level of retaliation. And what was the cause for retaliation? The Maharshi did not know at all. The water must have been there. He could have searched a little and took the water himself. He could have taken the water himself. That he did not do. Now, this episode, like wildfire, it started spreading everywhere. That Parikshit has done it. Meanwhile, he also got very repentant. Natural, what he did was not called for at all. Coming to know of whatever had happened, his son, Shamika Maharshi's son, got more angry. If Parikshit was angry for the thirst, the son was angry for the crime the king had done. So he felt so wild. He climbed down into the river, took some water in his hand, and chanting some mantra, he said, whichever powerful hand has put this dead cobra on my father's neck, he will be bitten by a living cobra and die on the 7th day. Parikshit had already become repentant. This curse of the boy spread like a greater wildfire. Parikshit certainly felt repentant. He had life only for 7 days or 6.5 days. So he decided to meet the challenge. What was the decision? He decided to go on fast unto death. It is called a prayopavesha vow. People generally have heard about it, but nobody would have seen it. I was told very late, I did not know, that in Parlikad, my Purvashrama born village, there was one Kontavadya. He did prayopavesha. How comfortably he sat. Even Purushottama Swamiji went to make him eat or drink something. He said, no, I don't want. Please don't press me. So prayopavesha, don't think that nobody undertakes it. After all, it is a vow that is prevalent in our culture. So Parikshit decided to undertake prayopavesha and he took. And then going to the bank of Bhagirathi, he spread kusha grass and sat on it facing the east. So many people coming to know both the instances. Whatever crime he had done and whatever compensatory measure he was undergoing himself, both of them shook their hearts. Prayopavesha they have only heard. Now somebody is seated on prayopavesha. Let us go and see him. So many people flocked there. All of them started complimenting. He received the compliments and said, I accept your compliments provided you will fulfill one condition. What is that? I have only 7 days of life. I am under prayopavesha. All that I need is, I want you to drench me with your beautiful narration of words of truth. Provide me a full satsang. Let my mind sink in your listening to your narration. When they were talking about like that, see, the same nature, the same providence which had kept a dead cobra there outside to add fuel to the fire of Parikshit, the same providence now arranged for a 16-year-old Shuka Maharshi, Shuka Muni, to come and greet him. Coming to know that he was on prayopavesha and seated on the bank of Bhagirathi or Kusha grass. This Shuka Maharshi himself wanted to see him. So he came. A 16-year-old boy, mind you, wearing no apparel on his body. The very sight of that boy enlightened Parikshit. He got up, prostrated before him. He was given a seat. And Shuka Maharshi took up the task of enlightening Parikshit. What was his problem? His problem was impending death. In the case of Arjuna, the problem was having to kill so many warriors who had come there readily to fight, kill or get killed. Here he was going to die, and only 7 days were left for him. So within the 7 days, he must be able to meet this death. What shall I do? Shuka Maharshi took up Srimad Bhagavata narration. And 6 days went on, and there was no disturbance at all. Parikshit did not have even to get up to answer the calls of nature, because he was not taking either solid food or liquid food. Shuka Maharshi went on narrating, and Parikshit went on listening. And as it happened in the Bhagavad Gita context, a number of questions arose, enquiries arose. So whenever he had an enquiry, he raised it, and Shuka Maharshi was answering those also. And 6.5 days passed. The narration was over. Parikshit thanked Shuka Maharshi, and finally he said, I no more fear Takshaka or death. I am going to withdraw my senses from the world, and I will withdraw the mind from the senses. I will withdraw the intelligence from the mind, and I will steep it into the depths of my soul, he said, and closed his eyes, withdrew himself, and got completely immersed in his own inner spiritual transparence. Takshaka came, bit him, and in the fire of the poison his body was burned. Everything was reduced to ashes. But Parikshit was not there to know about it. Others were reporting the whole episode. Now, this is what happened. Tell me, my dear souls, if you are wise, what was the type of sadhana that Parikshit did? He did not get up from there. He did not do any circumambulation even. Only listen to. Listening means ears were used. That the actual listening was done by the mind. When the mind receives an idea, it becomes part of the mind. I always say it is like a tub of water. You start pouring drops of milk, one after the other, into the tub of milk. What will happen? With every drop, the water will change its color. There will come a time when there will be no water and it will all be a little diluted milk. Exactly in the same manner, our mind absorbs ideas. The ideas can be anything. Our children are doing the same thing in schools and colleges. The teachers are exposing them to knowledge. And every child is supposed to receive and absorb the inputs. And the mind starts growing. When the body has grown, they also have become knowledgeable to some extent, at least. In the same manner, cannot our mind absorb the spiritual and philosophical truths? What are they? They are the ultimate truths of life, truths of the world, truths of our interaction with the world. That is what is called spirituality. Spirituality is a science. It is wisdom, its pursuit. In spirituality, there is nothing else, my dear souls. Did Arjuna do anything in the battlefield in the way of austerity? He did it before to get Pashupatashtra. But in the battlefield, he did not do any austerity. Unable to stand, he was seated. He sat and he only heard. So the entire interaction was between his mind and Krishna's intelligence. And by listening to Krishna, the delusion was cleared, stability was generated, clarity of vision was obtained, and he was able to get up and do the work. In the case of Parikshit, it was not a question of being active thereafter. So he said, I don't fear Takshaka. I don't fear death also. I have become immortal. I am withdrawing. This also our mind and intelligence are capable of doing. When many of you come and then say, I am sorry, somebody told me something, some misbehavior was there on the part of one of my relatives, and ever since that I have hated him. Who asked you to hate him? By hating somebody, you are making your mind hateable. Your mind hateable. If you drink poison, what will be the effect? If you drink milk, what will be the effect? So by remembering that he has done something wrong, you are making your mind wrong. Think in a different manner. Think in a different manner. Our mind is the one to do sadhana. With Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna was set right. With Srimad Bhagavata listening, Parikshit was set right. And let us go to Sri Rama, the 16-year-old prince of Ayodhya. He went on a pilgrimage after completing his archery lessons. That was the first time he went outside the boundaries of Ayodhya to see the Bharatavarsha and have a direct interaction with the people, with the world, with the situations, events, etc. When he went there, he had a lot of expectation. But when he came back totally dejected, depressed, completely overpowered by dismay and dejection. He was not able to get up in the morning, have his bath, ablutions, go to the father and mother and prostrate before them. Everything he stopped. And coming to know of the plight, Vasishtha called him and he said, what is your trouble? So Rama narrated, this is what I have seen. I have no time to go into it. He says, Rama says in Treta Yuga, I cannot see a man even in dream who is good and noble, he says. Sadhu swapne pyasmit jagadi sujano nadya sulabha. What do you mean by that? He was so disappointed, not able to do anything at all, not even like Parikshit and Arjuna. Vasishtha went on talking to him for 18 days. 18 days. Can you imagine? We have a book called Yoga Vasishtha Ramayana, consisting of 32,000 Sanskrit verses. Our Valmiki Ramayana, most authoritative on Sri Rama's life, it is 24,000 Sanskrit verses. But the dialogue he and Vasishtha had between them sitting in the palace, in the presence of his father, mothers and the others, 32,000 Sanskrit verses, Valmiki has recorded. See, here is a book called The Quietitude of the Mind. This is the first book I wrote on Yoga Vasishtha Ramayana many years back. It is a condensed version of the Upashama Prakarana, the Prakarana on quietude of the mind, how to make the mind quiet, how to steep it in quietude. Now I am writing in our magazine, see, this book Vichara Setu, this is our magazine. The leading article is from Yoga Vasishtha Ramayana. I am writing on the Nirvana Prakarana, the last. The title of the series is Signs of Inner Redemption. I would like you to have a copy of Vichara Setu, the path of introspection. We have been running this for more than 50 years. It has become a national journal. Tell your friends also about it. Get a copy, subscribe for it, and make sure that you read it. Otherwise, there is no point in listening to me now. What is meant by mento-intellectual sadhana? How to do it? Who has done it? What is the way of doing it? Arjuna did it in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Parikshit Maharaja did it on the bank of Bhagirathi. And Sri Rama did it in the palace of Ayodhya. Rama was 16 years old, Parikshit was very elderly, Arjuna was a middle-aged man. What more do you want? Tell me. You will fit into one of the three? In the case of Rama, Vasishtha did not allow him to be absorbed as Parikshit did. No, he did not allow him. He was a young prince. He was supposed to sit on the throne and rule the kingdom. So he said, Rama, you cannot take restfulness now. The spiritual illumination I am providing you, it can be for a restful life, that's okay. But it is not applicable to you. You are supposed to be buoyant, active and vibrant, but sitting on the throne, ensuring the welfare of the people. Those were days not of democracy. So if Rama was not there to sit, the throne would have been practically deserted. So he said, while ruling, you should not have anything like an ego or a possessiveness. Spirituality asks you to drop, sublimate your ego or efface your ego. It tells you not to be possessive about anything. You don't need to possess. You are already possessed by the soul and you don't need any other possession at all. And then foster no desire. To desire is the most lowest form of human life. The world is open. You have your skill, your ability. Automatically you will be active and everything that you need will come to you. To desire means to constrict the mind, to limit the mind. It will not allow you to perform anything properly and well. Now all these qualities were imbued into Sri Rama and Sri Rama absorbed them, and whatever sage Vasishtha asked him to do, he followed it and ruled the kingdom. Finally finishing all job, he went into the Sarayu river and disappeared. What more do you want? Let me ask you. So we have the 2.5 hour dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, the 6.5 days dialogue between Parikshit and Shukamuni, and we have an 18-day dialogue between Sri Rama, 16-year-old Rama, and sage Vasishtha. All these are speaking about what? Speaking about mento-intellectual sadhana. How this mento-intellectual sadhana is done? The primary way of doing it, exercise and employ your mind and intelligence. You generally exercise it only for worldly purposes, domestic purposes, professional purposes. You should learn to employ your mind and intelligence to solve the problems of the mind, to enlighten the intelligence, and to imbibe stability and a number of other qualities. What are the qualities? Commitment, dedication, perseverance, dispassion. So many qualities are there. So many. All of them are mento-intellectual qualities. Develop all of them. And all these are developed by an inner mento-intellectual effort. Arjuna's first suffering was grief. What did Krishna do? Follow me very carefully. Krishna took up grief as a subject, as an episode of life, an event of life, a reaction of life, a curse of life, and he discussed it in its full measure. Arjuna was thinking only about the death of the warriors before him. But Krishna said, you should think of death as a general affair in this world. So the perception was completely changed. The narrow outlook was replaced by a broad one. Now we are facing corona. Every day newspaper is reporting, so many have died, so many have been detected. In this country it is so much, India, here, there, so many things. But every time you read, even if somebody, the other day a person telephoned me, Swamiji, myself, my wife and father, all of us were admitted in the hospital. My father died, I am very sorry. We are still to be cured. I said, what was the age of your father? 82, he said. I was a little relieved. So whenever we have anything like a death by corona, you should not look at it in a narrow perspective. It is not that person's death. So many people have died. We don't know still how many will die, and corona will spare us. So let us consider the world is a seat for all these calamities. Srimad Bhagavata puts it, the world produces, life produces threefold suffering. Adhyatmic suffering, adhibaudik suffering, and adhideivik suffering. Without these sufferings, nobody can expect to live in this world. We had a cloud burst in the Himalayan region, and so many people died in the overflowing river. It happens. We have 7,500 kilometers of sea coast. A number of hazards will be there. I don't call them hazards. These are all nature's balancing measures. Understand that we are subject to them. If you live in this country, get prepared for it. Educate your mind. For education is this Bhagavad Gita. If you read Bhagavad Gita, try to reflect upon it, understand it, you will find that any calamity will be handled by you without undue mourning. So Krishna was discussing death in its broad perspective. So he said, Ashocyan anvashocastvam prajna vadamscha bhashase gatasoon agatasumscha nanushocanti pandita. I sometimes wonder whether all of you read Gita and understand it like this. He says, enlightened people. That means what? Krishna was trying to instill into the mind of Arjuna true enlightenment. And that too before the war. Krishna wanted Arjuna to fight as an enlightened warrior, as a stable warrior, as a poised warrior, which Arjuna could not do at all. He was only interested in his Gandiva, in his Pashupadastra. He never thought that he had a problematic mind. He had a problematic intelligence. He must have inmost resources. He must be able to harness them. That he could not know. So he missed. What he missed, Arjuna was trying to provide him. Krishna was trying to provide him in at least 2.5 hours, and he succeeded. So he says how the problem was treated. The enlightened people do not grieve over the dead or over the living. This is the mento-intellectual part. Here is a proposition presented before you, and you have to understand it. The enlightened people do not grieve over either the dead or the living. Means what? As are people living, so are they dying. Do you want nature to interfere here? Do you want the death rate to be lowered? What is it that your complaint is? As there are people born, so there should be people dying. Death is a complement, a completing element of life, and birth is a complement to death also. Birth alone can never be, life alone can never be. Along with birth, life, and along with both, death also. So the enlightened people have taken a very clear point of view. They have looked at the world in full, life in full, all the factors that constitute life in full, and they have arrived at a mature vision, as a result of which they are able to say, when somebody dies, maybe it is an young age death. It's very sorrowful, no doubt. But the fact is, it has come to be. Not that all people die at the old age. Some people die young also. There are not alone incidents in this world. Accidents also are there. There is not alone ill health. Ill health also is there. That is what the world is. Let us understand this fact of the world. So, gatasoon agatasumscha nanusho chanti pandidaha. Death affects the body. But we only have the body knowledge. The enlightened people have something more. They understand more than the body, something besides the body. All of you do not have such a knowledge. Who prevented you from having that knowledge? Every one of you is saying, I am, I was, I am. What is this I, your identity? If we are not thinking about it, what else are we supposed to think in this world? Everything depends upon myself, I. Changelessly we have been saying this right from our young age till we die. But nobody worries about what is this I. Is it for no reason that we have an I feeling or an I consciousness or a knowledge? So these people have thought that body is perishable and the perishable body alone perishes. But other than the perishable body, there is something called an imperishable presence in one. And everyone refers to that identity as I. That I never dies. So what is this death? This death is a pseudo-death. It is a fictitious death. You are unnecessarily getting into the idea of somebody has died. Nobody has died. Whatever you refer to as I am living, that am factor and the I factor can never die. They have never died. So Arjuna was in a way shocked, in a way surprised. But it was a pleasant surprise for him. So he became very curious. What is this wonderful point of view by virtue of which the enlightened people are able to look at the living and the dead alike? There is an evenness in their outlook. So many people have died and some people are living. Even if you take an account now about the people who have died in this world and who are living in this world, 10,000 crores of people have died. And we have now, I believe, 400 crores of people on the earth. Tell me what is the proportion. Suppose all these people were not dying, there will be no space on earth even for ants to crawl. What is your intelligence for? Why don't you look at it openly? World is a place for death. It is equally a place for birth. It is a place for goodness. Sometimes there will be bad also. Let us be open enough to accept the world in an open manner. After all, we are human beings, not animals. Why are we educating a child to develop his mind and intelligence? With the developed mind and intelligence, any life situation we must be able to live through and outlive. Life is a process of living and outliving. We were in the mother's womb. We outlived it and came out. And we were a tender baby. That babyhood we outlived. One after the other, one after the other. And at one point of time, we have to leave the body also. Sometimes it happens in a well-known and orderly manner. Sometimes accidentally also it takes place. How many modern facilities we have created. Our roads themselves, they cause 1.5 lakhs of people are dying on our roads. They are our roads, our vehicles, our traffic laws, our enforcement. In spite of it, so many are dying. Why did we choose to make roads, you tell me? Why are we having vehicles? Is the intention to kill the people? But it is happening. I think this subject requires a thorough investigation. You have to do introspection. Arjuna is made to do introspection now. So, in the entire spiritual science, how many times shall I say this? In the entire spiritual science, spirituality, there is only one fundamental discussion. That is about the soul or the self. That is the sole focus of spirituality. All the other things are imaginary, speculative, mythological. But this is something factual. What is the discussion? the discussion is about the I. When I call you, you respond saying, I am here. Who is here? Is it the body? Certainly not. The body is inert. It consists of matter and energy. Neither matter nor energy is sentient. It cannot react to and respond to things. We are sentient. The sentience is not a quality or a product of the matter or energy, but our body is matter and energy alone. It is their aggregate. So there is something different from the body which we call I. That I is the focus of spirituality. See how Krishna introduces it. This is verse number 12 of the second chapter. Natvevaham jadunasam. You want to stop? Natvevaham jadunasam natvam neme janadhipaha nachaiva na bhavishyamaha sarve vayamadav param. Krishna is explaining what is this I. Right in the second verse of his dialogue to Arjuna, with Arjuna. Natvevaham jadunasam. Arjuna, you are wondering as to what is the enlightened point of view of the wise people. Their view is this understanding. Natvevaham jadunasam natvam neme janadhipaha. There was no time when I was not, you were not, nor Bhishma, Drona and the others were not. You perhaps think of me as having been delivered off by Devaki and bred by Yashoda. This is true only of my body. I am not the body at all. When I say I refer to something different from the body. Body is insentient. The I is all sentience. The difference is very, very marked. So I am the sentient presence in my body. That sentient presence nobody has delivered. It is not born at all. So my personality is not what Devaki has delivered. She has only delivered my body, the residence where I am. But the resident is not delivered by anybody. This is not true of me. This is true of you. This is true of Bhishma, Drona and the others. And Krishna, Arjuna, we are living now. Our presence is very ensured, no doubt. But the problem is, before the birth of the body were we. Now I have to tell you, yes, we were, we are, and we shall ever be. If I am existing now, I must have existed earlier. I will be existing later also. Existence can never contradict itself. A thing cannot change its original nature. So it will always be what it is. Tell me whether you are alive or not. If you are alive, you were alive and you will be alive. Where is death then, Arjuna? Whose death are you reporting? Are you worried about? The fight in the battlefield is not between souls at all. They are between bodies. They want to fight. They have come. And the fight will go on. Every individual soldier has come here with his individual resolution to fight, kill the enemies or get killed by the enemy. You have not drawn them with a noose. Everybody has come here out of his own volition. And they think that to fight in the battlefield and die is far more glorious than to die lying on a cot in their home. This is not a fight between one fighter and the other innocent people. All of them are fighters and they want to fight and have the joy. Sports people, will they not go to the sports field and perform? Football players, what will they do? They will play football. Cricketers, what will they do? They will play cricket. Similarly, fighters, what will they do? They will fight. You ask our army people, They join the army, they have all the training. Throughout their life, if they have had no occasion to participate in a battle, do you think they would feel fulfilled? No, they will feel we were idle. Let us understand the facts of life. We have an intelligence to know, to analyze, to inquire, to investigate, to evaluate, to appraise matters properly. So an appraisal is this: Natvevaham jadunasam natvam neme janadhipaha nachaiva na bhavishyamaha sarve vayamatah param. Existence continues to exist. Existence can never become non-existent. So if we are alive now, we were alive and we shall be alive. See, while giving the Vishwarupa Varnana in the 10th chapter, Krishna says, Aham Atma Gudakesha Sarva Bhutashayasthidaha Aham Adishcha Madhyamcha Bhutanam Antamevacha. It is verse number 20 from the 10th chapter. He refers to the Atma first, mind you. When you refer to Krishna, Krishna has a body. Other than the body, what he has is the soul. This soul and this body are equally the same for everyone. So in the whole of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is making a discussion only about the self, nothing else. Self alone. And his self, Arjuna's self, Bhishma and Drona, their self, everything is the same. This is also he is emphasizing. So, telling Arjuna very clearly about the identity called I and what is its nature, how imperishable, how ever-present, how changeless, how untransforming it is. And that is the fulcrum of spiritual teaching. It is this understanding of the self that is going to strengthen your personality, enrich your personality, elevate and enlighten your personality, and make you a full and abundant person. It is the same thing that Ashtavakra tells Janaka also. Somebody was saying that I should take Ashtavakra Samhita. I may not take it fully or for the whole session. Tomorrow I shall talk to you how the same self becomes the focus in the dialogue between sage Ashtavakra and King Janaka.
Now we would be moving to the Q&A session. Today we have about 15 minutes for it. The first question is from Sri Ram from Chennai. He writes, Humble pranams, Swamiji. At the online satsang on 31st May, you clarified for me, quote, what exactly is the mind? You said, as long as you have the dual vision, that is, the prevalence of many and one and many, that prevalence is called the chitta or mind. Also you mentioned that this prevalence is called ignorance or delusion. You went on to say that when the dual vision attains dissolution, they become one, disappear. That is the supreme knowledge. That is the supreme exalted state. In yesterday's discourse, you mentioned a couple of times emphatically, dissolve the mental functions. Swamiji, my question is, if the mind is dissolved, remaining in the exalted state, without using the mind, how can we interact and function in the world day to day? Would you please clarify this by giving examples from your own experience in life?
What is his name? Ram.
Ram Senguttuvan, Chennai.
Ram Senguttuvan. Ram, your question is very important. My answer also is going to be important. But this requires right understanding. So be very clear about it. With sharp intelligence, you listen to it. Don't create complications. Yesterday during the talk I said, in answer to somebody's question, that Shravana, Manana and Nididhyasana are the three stages in Vedantic studies and pursuit. Shravana and Manana, Arjuna is doing, Rama did, everybody did. Nididhyasana is something that you have to do alone. What is Nididhyasana? After having heard a proper exposition about the self and ideas are very clear, you sit in a place, close your eyes, sit in a place and try to dissolve the manovrittis, I said. What do I mean by that? After all, what are thoughts? The thoughts are mental formations. If they are mental formations, are they solid structures? Mind is not matter, nor is it energy. Mind is sentience. And in the sentient mind, any number of thoughts that arise, will they have any dents? Will they be separate products like mud pots made from clay? So every thought is a misnomer. There is no thought at all concretely in the mind. Every thought evolves, emerges, and it subsides. So you sit in a place, look into your mind, understand that no thought has an independent, solid, separate status. And finally you come to a stage where, just like the mind is bubbling, the same mind will subside and you will get into a state of serenity, quietude. How long can you be there? You cannot be there for long. Maybe an hour or two, maybe 10 hours. Even then you are not going to die after it. You will have to get up. So when you get up, what is the answer? So there is a further sadhana which tells you that post and pre-meditational hours of the day, you have to have a different sadhana. That sadhana is called jnana sadhana. Just like in Bhagavad Gita it says, Sarvabhutastham atmanam sarvabhutani jatmani ikshade yoga yuktatma sarvatra samadarshana. What does it mean? You understand that your atma, your soul, is not encased in the body, but it is pervading throughout the world. So the entire world is in yourself and yourself is in the world. Now this is a vision that you imbibe. What is mind? Mind is not a positive presence. On the other hand, what is this mind? Mind is that state of consciousness, mark my words, that state of consciousness where you feel many things are there. Look into your mind. There are many thoughts. Does it mean many things are there or only one mind is there? It is one mind that displays many thoughts. By displaying the thoughts, is there any credence to the thoughts as separate structure? No. So it is the deluded notion that the mind becomes many. It may display many thoughts, but many and manyness are not there. When you understand it in this manner, it means dissolution of the mind. So dissolution of mindness. With such a dissolution, you can live and move in this world. See, I am a seeker. I was a seeker of truth. Very desperately I was seeking. And all these questions did come to me. I used to become very dejected also for a period. Now what shall I tell you? When I look at the world, this world is no other than water becoming ice. When the water becomes cooled and becomes ice, it becomes solid. You can walk over it. But over water you cannot walk. But both of them are H2O. In the same manner, the subtle presence called Brahman or Atma, when you look at it through the senses, they become manifold and solid. This manifoldness does not change the nature of Brahman. It is still Brahman. So I don't look for Brahman separate from the world, nor is it necessary for me. So for me, the so-called samadhi and also the Jagrat state as it is, both have no difference at all, because the mind is dissolved for me. What is mind? Many idea, manyness. Yoga Vasishta puts it in this manner. Dvitva egatva drishau chittam tadeva ajnanam uchyade. As long as your mind goes on debating between oneness and manyness, that debate is called the mind. When the debate stops, you are free of the mind. So there is a level of living in this world where the mind drops its mindness. The mind drops its mindness. You don't become functionless, but you only become trouble-free. I don't know whether it has been clear to you. I can explain to you still further. Why don't you come here sometime after the corona restrictions are over? I appreciate your question very well. I would like you to read this publication. First of all, Vijayara Sedu, where I continue to write on the Nirvana Prakarana. This is the book Namradaji spoke about, Science of Inner Redemption. This is volume 1. We have published 3 volumes. In this, there is a section on Manonasha. It is a book worth reading many times, and you should develop a mastery over the whole discussion. Science of Inner Redemption, Nirvana Prakarana.
Should we take one more question? Swamiji, this is from Deeptarag Mukherjee from Calcutta. Swamiji, is accepting the 5th providential Daivam factor as stated in Bhagavad Gita a good justification in facing bad situations in life and a solution to depression? Should I repeat? Swamiji, is accepting the 5th providential Daivam factor as stated in Bhagavad Gita a good justification in facing bad situations in life and a solution to depression?
Yes, many times. Why are we believing in God? We not merely believe in God, we consider Him to be omnipotent. We consider Him to be omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient. He is also all-knowing. So the entire world is His product, His creations. He sustains it. So in the broad scheme of God, if a certain situation has come in, accept it in His name. Put it on His lap. Ask Him, this is something very difficult for me, but still it has come instrumented by you. So I hold you responsible and I surrender the whole impact to you. Look after it properly. Because in Bhagavad Gita, it is very clearly said what? Ananyas chintayanto mam yejanaha paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. You constantly think of me in an attitude of surrender and attunement. If you are able to sink your mind in this constantness of getting connected to me, then I look after them. Whatever is necessary, I provide, and whatever they have, I ensure its safety. Yogakshemam vahamyaham. You can completely rely upon it, but you should ensure that you belong to the Ananyas chintayanto mam yejanaha paryupasate. Your worship should not be with flowers. It should not be with articles and pudding. Your worship should be by what? Unflinching, constant reliance on God. You do whatever you like. Let you be suffering, it does not matter. Your reliance on God should remain unbrokenly. That unbroken reliance on Him will imbue the mind a very great power. See, Meera drank the poison given by the mother-in-law. The mother-in-law gave her poison to kill her. She did not doubt at all. Putting all the reliance on Krishna, she said, Krishna, Krishna, and drank it. The biochemical effect of the medicine was not there at all. Tell me how it has happened. So if material things have so much of power, what about the source material, the source? Providence is the source of everything. So the source material the source has inscrutable power. Inscrutable. It can make anything, it can unmake anything, it can also bring about change in whatever is there. So reliance on God make the mind insurmountable. It is possible. Okay. We shall stop. We shall conclude the session now. I would like to know, one of the days I would like to discuss a portion from Yoga Vasishtha Ramayana, particularly Quietitude of the Mind, whereby I propose to make an entry into our own inside. What is this mind arena? How to enter there? And how to extract whatever we want from within the mind? This kind of a discussion is there in Sri Yoga Vasishtha Ramayana. I would like to take it up, provided you like it. So I would like to have some information from you whether you would like it or our discussion will be what we are doing now. Samvedya varjitamanuttama meghamadyam samvidpadam vikalanam kalayan mahatman hridyeva tishtha kalanarahita kriyam tu kurvan akartrapadametya samodita shri kurvan akartrapadametya samodita shri. Harihi, Harihi, Harihi. We shall have the conclusional recitation of Omkara in chorus. Hari Om Das.